Begin the current Daf Mesech the Bava Kama Daf Chavches. Begin 5 lines down at the top of the Yomid, where the Gemara continues the conversation from the previous Daf, which we had this machlokes regarding Ovid Inish Dinul Nafshei, which we brought in because it came into the Gemara's previous discussion regarding, we were talking about boishes. So on that he wanted to know, I know how much shame this causes, how much shame that causes. What about this? And he says, what do you mean? Chizda, what do you mean? What have you been doing with boishes? So tell me the story. So he says, this guy was trying to take his day of getting the water. He says, this guy did medelanked him. He says he deserves it. So the Gemara got into conversation because even those who hold the dinala doing din nafshi, you can't take the laws into your own hands. But when it's a Bava Kama Daf, then you couldn't. The Gemara says because we have this machlokes, and then we got the Gemara is asking now on that machlokes regarding is that really true regarding either opinion that you could not do din al nafshei when there's no pseida. That's why Gemara continues trying to bring a raya in that halacha. Shiur's correspondent because in Cheskel turn to Daf Yomi, which we're today's Daf. B'schus v'chein b'nei Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael and throughout the entire world. So I'm discussing today's Daf, like we said, this idea of Ovid Inish din la nafshei. Could a person do the judgment, the law, by himself? Or does he have to go to the Dayanim, to the Rav, and get a psak? The halacha of Nishbir Kader B'Shus Rab, which the next Mishnah discusses this case, someone's jug broke in the street. And someone slipped on the water. Or he got injured by the shards. Chayiv, he's going to be liable, but the Mishnah discusses a machlokes regarding that halacha. Halacha of tinfu kelev b'mayim, if this guy's jacket, let's say, got ruined in the water that was there, so that's going to be very important how to qualify the status of that water, where that depends on kol takala shlehifkira. Any stumbling block that you were not mafker, the question is, how do we qualify the water? If it's like a bar, then bar is pater on kelim, like we know shor b'lei adam chamor b'lei kelim. That's going to be very important how to qualify how you have that mind. Additionally, the question is, if a person dug a pit, is he liable only for hezek caused through havle, its air, or through chavate, its impact? That also depends because of the person slipping on the water and hurting himself on the ground. Well, that ground, are you liable for the impact of the ground, or is bar only a mazik for the hevel when you're falling through the ear space of the bar, as we'll see later on this mesechta, or even for the klop that you get when you hit the ground? The halacha imetiach tzluchusi be'evan. If a person's jug breaks on a stone, so chayiv, the person who owns the stone is going to be chayiv. Rabbi Lazar says, if he's nitkal be'evan v'nishif be'evan, then you chayiv. You trip on the stone and then your jug breaks on the stone, then the guy will be chayiv. But if nitkal b'karkav, let's say someone tripped on the ground, and then v'nishif be'evan, and then it breaks on the stone, then the owner of the stone is actually going to be potter. So we begin the current Daf Chavches, 5 lines down at the top of the Yomid. Like we said, we're discussing the issue of Ovid Inish Dil Nafshei. The Gemara had said, and this is really where it came in from the previous Daf, but Makam Seder. If he cannot recover his loss in Bezdin, then he may take action to prevent the loss. Al-Machlik what Shaloi b'Makam Seder, where he can recover his loss in Bezdin. Yehuda says, okay, Ovid Inish Dil Nafshei. He may not take action because the Kivim Delakim Seder Lezel Kamei Dayana. There's no loss, so he must go to Bezdin. Nachman held on, no, Ovid Inish Dil Nafshei. He may take action to prevent the loss because the kivin the bedin of it loitagach. His claim is justified. It does not need to go to Bezdin. That's what the Gemara continues trying to bring a raya. Tashma says the Gemara. Let's bring a raya to Rav Nachman that you could take matters into your own hands from the following brisa. The brisa says, "Sure, interesting case. Sure sha'ala al gabe chaveira lahargay. One ox gets on top of another ox because he wants to kill him. Okay. Now the owner of the lower ox comes along. V'shamat es shaloi. He pulls out his ox from the bottom. Now v'nofel el yoin v'meis. The one on the top had a big fall now from the height of his ox, and the upper ox died. Says the Brisa Potter. The owner of the lower ox that pulled out his ox is going to be exempt. Says the Gemara, you have to halt cup a little bit, but my love, isn't this case talking about b'mu'id, that the upper ox was a shur hamu'id? Therefore what? What's the significance of that? If he would have let and left that upper ox to kill his ox, the lekeb seda, there wouldn't be any loss because he would take him to court. He would get the full amount of damages that the shor hamuid injured for his ox. And still you see that your putter, you're allowed to go ahead and pull out your lower ox. Oh, it's like Rav Nachman. Over inish deal navshei, even b'makom the lekeb seda. So the Gemara, no, it's not. It's tamam betam. The upper ox was a tam, lekeb seda. Where if he would go to court, in the meantime, the upper ox would kill his ox. Now he would only get half the damages. There would be a situation of loss, and therefore that's why he'd be allowed to pull it out. But it's not a raya to Rav Nachman. No, no, but we're talking about that. The lower ox, meaning, but because, but this,
this one fell.
Right.
Is it expected that if I pull out this one, is not going to jump?
No, that doesn't even have to be expected. That's other mood la'olam. We're talking about the lower one dying.
I would just
no, if you cause something as a person.
Somebody pulls the ox, is about to hit the water, and pulls this, and all of a sudden it's up there. Oh, you killed it. There's certain things which is expected or not expected.
You're asking Stam in general, why is he liable for having killed the upper ox?
Yes. Because the other mode, the oil is when you do something that causes damage. Is this expected to be damaged? It's a normal thing. You pull it out. You don't jump on my ox. Let me pull mine. I want to be saving mine. I'm saving mine. And it's not expected that yours will die. But the oil is when you do something wrong. When you do something wrong.
Right. I mean, but I'm saying it sounds like the Metzius was that's why he died. If that's the Metzius that is what caused it, then it sounds like that a person would always be liable, even if he's not expecting that to happen.
I would say that when someone kills somebody, it has to be with something that is
right. That's right. Right. So that's for the death penalty for liability. Having killed someone by nizakin is more of a broader. It's only like Tyson discussed Einis Gomer, as we'll see, whatever. But generally, even if it's an Einis, a person is going to be responsible beyond his control. A Shermud, yeah. A Shermud gets killed if it kills a person. Oh no, Shermud gets killed. What? Once it's wood, then it gets. But what do you want to ask about that? If it's a Shermud, then what?
It's not a wood that's killed a person. If it's killed 3 times an ox, don't get killed. You could be chef. But then right? A wood that kills a person, of course. As a matter of fact, any time an ox kills a person, you have to
kill it. Right. That's how they ask. How does it get to move?
He killed three oxes. So when that happens, so it doesn't get killed.
And as he's shown. Protect it. It's like any mazik that's a muad, that's a regular whatever. If you don't kill it when it does that. So the Gemara says, okay, you're saying it's something by tam, but you have the following question: name a seifa. The seifa then says a different way. Let's say let's say the guy doesn't pull out his ox in the bottom. He stups off, he pushes off the upper ox, and then it dies. Then chayiv, then he's going to be liable. Says the Gemara, betam. But if the upper animal was a tam, am I chayiv? Why is he liable? But there's a loss. If he wouldn't push off the animal, he would have a loss. And I thought of it in the dinish dil nafshe. Like Taisa explains, he says, if you tell me the animal on top is a muid, so I understand why you would hold the victim liable, because he's not confounded, he's not bohol. He should have just pulled out his from the bottom. So why are you pushing the top one? That's more of a vicious act, and therefore it'll be chayiv. But every time where it's a tam, the Gemara is not entertaining, at least now, the Gemara is going to answer not like this in a second, but the Gemara is not entertaining that he should have to pull down his lower animal because the guy's overwhelmed. He's like, oh my gosh, my animal's going to die. I'm going to get only half the damages. So he pushes off the upper one. So So therefore, the Gemara is wondering, if it's a tam, why are you being mechayiv him? Says the Gemara, no, it's not true. It's not an excuse. Even though it's a tam and it would have been a loss, and you're allowed to take the laws into your own hands, you can't push the upper one, which is going to make him die. You're allowed to pull out your animal, and since you didn't do that, you're going to be chayiv. Okay, so that's the answer we gave is not difficult. It's not a right of Nachman because it's not a mood. It's talking about that as a tam. Tashmat says bring another right of Nachman from the following price. Someone fills up someone else's courtyard with kadi yain v'kadi shemen, maybe a prank, who knows, whatever, or you don't care about your neighbor, and you're middle of getting a delivery, a whole package, and you say, do me a favor, drop it off by my neighbor, I don't have room by my house, I'm making a simcha. So he fills up his friend's courtyard with jugs of wine and jugs of oil, it's a big Costco order, whatever. So Baal HaChatzer, the owner of the courtyard, comes home, he says, what's going on over here? This is that same neighbor? No, so he's Mishabah v'yetz, Mishabah v'nichnas. He could break as he goes out, he could break as he comes in. Now, Tais actually points out, even though just a moment ago he said that, what's the excuse? You should at least remove it. That's meaning we said you should remove your lower animal, not push up the upper animal. That's because it's not such a tircha to pull out more than pushing off. But here, Chazal will not matriach this guy to start organizing this guy's boxes, bottles that he put in your way, and like make a nice pile. So no, you could break and come and break and go out. Because, so what do you see from here? You see like Rav Nachman. There's no loss over here. It's not Makam Seder. And we say, oh, but there's no Navshay. I could take the law in my own hands. I could just break this guy's stuff. So you see not like Rabbi Yehuda, you see like Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman Yitzchak, he says, no, Mishabah v'yayitza, when he said you could break and go out, is Labezdin. This guy, his whole driveway is blocked up by this guy. He has to get out. He's as he's pulling out, he can break all those because he's going to court. B'Shabbat v'nichnas, when he's breaking and coming in, is lehevis chiyosab, is where he's coming to get, for example, let's say the guy was claiming that it's his courtyard. This guy has to bring a shtar mechir to show that I bought it. This is my property. So it's not a right to Rav Nachman. Really, you're not allowed to just take the matter into your own hands. It's actually the guy's on his way to court. And therefore, that's why he's allowed to do that. Mr. Toshmat is trying to bring another raya. The Brisa says, Minayin l'nirtza, and specifically a nirtza, how do we know that someone who already had his ears bored, where he stayed till Yovel, Shekala lo yamav, that it's already Yovel time. His time is up. Now, B'Rabbi Mesar by Lotzis, his master is pushing him, pressing him to get out, because your time is up. It's already Yovel. And b'chavos by Chabura, now he injures him and he inflicts a wound on him, the master into the slave, when he's trying to get him out. That little scuffle they have over there, trying to push him out the door, and he gets injured and he screams foul. Shupater, that the master is going to be exempt. Because we learn from a pasuk in Bamidbar. So the pasuk actually says there, it's actually talking about the context of, it says Leisichu Kaifer, don't take atonement money, where it says that if the guy has to run to the Ir HaMiklat, Lashuv, to come back to dwell in the land, he's not allowed to come back until the Kohen dies. Now, we're darshaning this for another context. Leisikhu Kaifer Lashev. What does that mean? So Rashi explains two different interpretations. Either that there's no atonement money for someone who wants to come back and to be Makulkul because he wants to stay and be an Eved, that the master is not responsible, or it means Lashev means someone who has the halacha of Shav al Mishpachtoi, and he doesn't want to, so Leisikhu, you don't take for him any money as to atone for the master having injured him. That's the drasha. Al Kapanim, one thing we see is like Rav Nachman. The master is taking the law into his own hands. There's no loss over here, and yet he's not liable for the damages that he did to the slave trying to get him out of the house. Says, no, it's not a right to Rav Nachman. What we're talking about over here is ba'avde ganva. We're talking about a slave that's a thief, where if you let him stay a day longer, before you know it, the china closet's going to be half empty. So because of that, it is a Makam Seder. So everyone would agree that you're allowed to get rid of him. Says, up until now, Ganav, he didn't steal. He stayed till Yovel v'ashta Ganav, and now suddenly he's stealing? Says, yeah. Up until now, how about Amos did Abi Alel? He had the intimidation, he had the awe of his master on him. He's his master. Hashta now, Leslie Am said, you can't touch me, you're not my master. and therefore he might actually start stealing now, and therefore that's why it is considered b'makom hefsed. Now, Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar, he says a different way of interpreting the brisa that is not a right to Rav Nachman. He said we're talking about be'eved shemosulei rabbi shivcha knanis. We're talking about a slave that his master gave him, as we know, the Eved Ivri, who this Eved Ivri is staying till Yovel, the master's allowed to give him a non-Jewish maidservant. Ada idn up until now hetera, it was permitted, like it says in Madonna B'yitin L'Yisha in Parashat Mishpatim, his master allowed to give him. But Hashda, now that he's a free person, Isura, it's prohibition, and therefore he's allowed to hit him to separate him, because this is not L'Nafshe, isn't right? You cannot be doing Dina L'Nafshe when there's no Seder. But it's not L'Nafshe over here. He's doing it for Hashem. And therefore give him shmasin to get him out, because you can't stay a day longer. Now she's forbidden to you, this woman that you were intimate for the last 17 years, and therefore he's like, get rid of him. So the Gemara says, okay, Tushma, try to bring another raya. This is really where we get back to halacha of our Mishnah. Our previous Mishnah said, Hamaniach esakad b'reshus harab. So if someone left a jug in the street, someone else trips on this guy's bottle, the shaver, and he breaks it. So he said, Potter. So the guy who tripped and broke it is going to be exempt. Says the Gemara, time of the nitkaba. Reason because he tripped in it. Hashavara, but if he broke it, meaning he deliberately kicks it to smash it, chayiv is going to be liable. Now, as Rashi points out, Rav had previously explained that this case is specifically talking about, and Taisa also discusses this, that's specifically about, according to Rav, that when you filled up the whole street with barrels, nowhere to walk. This guy blocked the whole street. So obviously, I know those kids make those there's different whatever they make, there's extravaganzas, and they block your whole street, right? So you see that you're not allowed to take matters into your own hands, and even Makam Seder. This is on everybody we're asking, because you see, if you tripped, fine, you broke it, and remember, Rav said the whole street was filled. But if you dafka came and kicked and smashed it, which taking matters into your own hands, you'd be chayiv. So this is difficult on everyone from our Mishnah.
When we just said Chatzor Chaveru, it didn't go through the fact that he could break it. It didn't really amplify whether he broke it because he wanted to leave or he just was angry and broke it.
There we said that it's mishaber. There he's doing it deliberately, we said. The only thing was...
He's doing it for what reason?
Oh, so that's what we said. Either we said it's because you could take matters into your own hands, and that would be a right to Rav Nachman.
Irrespective of his need?
But the guy who put it is, you have no right putting it over here, I'm going to smash
so no
it.
matter what, it's
That was one. Then we said it's not a raya. Then we said it's not a raya because it could be told that he's only breaking because he has to get out to court to go show them that this is his. But stam to break, he's not allowed to. That was what we said it's not a raya. But now over here, our Mishnah says the guy tripped. The guy tripped. Why tripping? The guy left the whole street full of these bottles. You should be able to break it because it's makam seder because you can't even get where you need to get to.
You should break it before you trip because...
Yeah, exactly. Who are you blocking the streets? Right? You have some Lives Matter or something like that. Like I can't get now over the bridge now. So that's it. Some of the Gemara says, no, you see that you would be chayiv. So Amar Zim Mishin Rabbi says, no, then the same thing is Afila Shavra. It's not true. The truth is, it would even if you broke it. So why are we saying that the guy tripped Dafka? Because that's only because I did the Kabbalah Mishnah Sefer. It's only because we want to learn the second half of the Lacha. Second Lacha said that imhuzak, that if the person himself got injured, the guy who was walking and tripped, balchavis chay beniska. Then we said, so then the owner of the barrel is actually liable for those damages. So that's the dafka nitkal. For that we have to say specifically he tripped. Because if he went and broke this, and we said this in the previous daf, you wouldn't hold the owner of the jug responsible for those damages. Who has a nafshe? He injured himself. Who asked you to kick like a nudnik and get splinters in your foot and injure yourself? So Ketani Reisha nitkal. So the Reisha also said nitkal, but you're right. The truth is the Reisha of being exempt for breaking the guy's barrels is not just nitkal. Would even be if mishaber, even if you broke it, because that everyone agrees you could take the matters into your own hands when it's been welcome said. What? No. Balchavis is the owner of the barrel. He's the guy who left it there in the street, and he actually filled up the whole street according to Rav. Now nothing happened to him. The guy now there's someone else walking down the street, And two things could have happened. Either the guy walking down the street broke that barrel, or he actually got injured from the barrel. That's the Reisha in the Sefer of the Mishnah. The Reisha says that the guy was right. So Gemara says Tashma, it's being a riot from another brisa. The brisa says a pasuk in Devarim says "V'katzeise es kappa." This was the case when you have two men that are fighting, and one woman tries to come to her husband's help, and she stretches out her hand, and she touches him in the embarrassing place. So it says like we cut off her palm, and you don't have any compassion. Now we are not those type of people. We don't actually cut off her palm. The Chazal tell us that means mammon. It means money. You have to compensate for that. My law, but isn't it talking about she could not have saved her husband any other way, where she did it with bedina, and still you see that a person cannot be of it in this dil navshay, even b'makom seder, because this is obviously a situation of loss. Her husband's getting beaten by this other guy. The only way she would have been able to save him is to go ahead and pull this guy by his manhood. And still we see that she's liable. So this is difficult on everybody. We see that you cannot be over din nishal navshay, even makom seder. So the Gemara, no, it's not true. We're talking about where she could have saved him another way. Then that she's not doing dina. It's not justified. It's not justified, therefore you're going to be liable for what she did to that other man. So the Gemara says, wait a second. So what do you tell me? But if, let's say, there would be no other way for her to save her husband. This guy's beating up her husband. She's obviously not stronger than this guy, but if she could get him there in the sensitive area, she'll be able to save her husband. Then you tell me, Petura, then she'll be exempt? Yeah, if that's the case, the Tani Sefer, then why does the Sefer, the Brisa, say that the words in the pasuk there are B'sholcha Yada? She stretches out her hand to that man and she grabs a hold of B'mavushav, then she's responsible. What's Yada, her hands, is prat, is excluding the Shliach Bezin. It's a miyut. But if, let's say, an agent of the court, if he does that, he's going to be exempt for the shame that he does to the person. Why are you bringing that? You could differentiate and you could say in the case of the woman herself. When we say this, that she's going to be responsible, and she could have saved her husband some other way, she could have kicked him in the shin or whatever. But if she cannot save him any other way, then Betura should be exempt. Why go to a different case? It's always a bigger chiddush to say in the case itself. Gemara says, you're right, this is exactly what the Brisa is saying. But when we say this, that she's going to be responsible and she's going to have to pay for the baishas, when she could have saved her husband some other way. But she cannot save her husband any other way, then her hand becomes like the agent of court, which is there to execute the judgment, which you could be doing l'nafshtei when it's b'makom seder, and then Betura judgment be exempt. Okay, it's not a difficulty. Tashma, the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from a Mishnah Bava Basra. Mishnah says, if someone had a public path that was passing through his field, the guy owns a field, which oftentimes is a road passing through. So now he doesn't want this anymore, people passing through his fields. So what he does in the Tala, he takes possession of the path. And he says, old Route 17, now there's new Route 17. That's it, no more of this. He takes over the road, and he gives them on the side of his field a new road. Says the Mishnah, you know what happens? The road that he gave them is given, and his, he doesn't get. Says the Gemara, wait a second. If you say, a person could take the law into his own hands, Lin could pizra, let him take a stick, and sit on the first path, because that's the din. Because you said what he gave is given, so obviously that's a bona fide transfer. So the original path, let him stand there with a stick and stop people from coming on over there. Says the Gemara, Amar Vazud Mishmei Derava, says no, it's a gezer, it's a rabbinic decree, which is Shemi Yilam Derech HaKalasim. Maybe he's going to give them a crooked path, which that's not din. He didn't give them, it's not justified that he took this good path and gave them this fakrachana path that now the oil has to go through that path. And because of a decree that he might do that, therefore we said that no, you can't hold on to the original path. Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says, No, we're actually talking about benoislim derech hakalasim. We're talking about where that's actually the case of the Mishnah is where you give them a winding path. Therefore, you cannot take back the old path. Third approach, Rav Ashi says, no. He says, Kol min hatzad, anything that's on the side, and this every askin has to know this, derech hakalasim hu. That is a crooked path. Why? Because Kadreva Lazeh, it's closer to the people for the city that are near that side, but a Chayka Lazeh. And it's further away for those who are closer to the other side, where now they have to go all the way around to the field. When it was in the middle, they didn't have to go around so much. So anytime you change anything in the shul, you expect to get beaten up because it's going to be closer to someone, but it's going to be further away than someone else. So it's automatically derech hakalasin. And therefore that's why you cannot take back the old path because that was better for me. And so even though 97 people like the new thing, but I don't like this. That doesn't work for me. And so therefore, that's why he can't get back the old path. The thing says, okay, then I don't understand. If you're telling me that it's not a good exchange, and that's why he can't take the original path, then why are you telling me that Taisa says the girsa shouldn't be shaloi lo higiyoi, it should really be mashanasa nasna mai. We know why shaloi lo higiyoi. Shaloi lo higiyoi was going on the original path. That he doesn't get. But why what he gave is given, leimalahu, you should tell them, shekula ditchu. Take yours, vavlidi, give me mine. So why am I losing both? Why what I gave it gave, and why what I wanted is not mine? So that depends how you translate it. But basically, the Gemara's question is, why does he lose both paths now? The original path he doesn't get. What? No, the Mishnah is saying.
Just go the other way, guys. This is mine.
Which one? The original path? We said he can't take the original path because that's a crooked path. I mean, the one he gave them was crooked, so he can't take this one over because
he didn't ask for anything in the originally when he gave you the original path. Why should you get anything? That was it.
No, the original path is the derech harabim. Shaila is how that happened, but that was a path that the rabbim always had.
Unless he made a machal, as we know in the beginning.
Right, so he didn't make a machal, right? Or
you're saying now, give him something else.
He's giving them. He's giving them.
It doesn't say anywhere that he was ever his.
Sure. Otherwise, he has no restriction.
No. The first path is not his. The first. Right. Exactly. However that happened. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference how it became the derech harabim.
But now you're saying give him something in place of that.
No, so he wanted to. He gave them. He says, guys, look, this is right in the middle of my field. That do me a favor. I'm giving you a new path on the side of my field. So the Mishnah says he loses both. What he gave them is given. Now they could use that path too. And he doesn't get this path running through his field. So he says, why? If they're getting what he's giving, why doesn't he get the originals? That's what we had, either because Gezerah derech hakalasin, or it is a derech hakalasin, or because every path is derech hakalasin. Okay, so you're not giving him the old path, so then why what he gave is given? Let him at least take back his new path. Why does the rabbin get both paths now?
That new path is de facto already given.
Right.
And now they're based it. And he has to keep both.
They get to keep both, right. So that's the question, why? If you're not giving him the old path, at least let him hold on to his new path. Says the Gemara, Mishum de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Meitzer shechziga berabim, a boundary that the public has taken possession of, asla kalkula, you're not allowed to ruin it. The moment they take possession of it, that's it. It's already the tziburs, and so it's too late. You already gave that to them. And the original you don't get because of the reasons that we said. So therefore, that's why it's going to be that Allah. Akapanim, it's not a raya, not a difficulty on you cannot be don dinu lenafshei. This is because of a different reason. This is because of derech shechziku b'rab. Gemara says, Tashma, I'll try to bring another raya from a different brayso. Baal habayis shanich pei mitzad echad. So we know a person has a field, there's a halacha of taking payah, which is you leave a corner of the field for the poor. So if you left one corner from one side, go figure, the poor, they came and they took from the other corner of the field. So zev is a payah. So both corners now have the halachic status of payah. Says the Gemara, why? A person can take matters into his own hands. So my zev is a payah. Why are you saying both corners are payah? Now he has to leave both corners for the poor? Link it piss of a lesim. Let him take a stecken and sit over there and say, you dear, come over here, I'll give you one over the head. It's not, I'm not leaving both corners of my field, there's one corner. So Rabbi says, no, my zeb is a pay. What does it mean that both corners are payah? It's actually just lafoitrim and a meiser. It's just to exempt from meiser, meaning even the remaining payer. is considered as hefker, and even though he's taking it, you're right, he's not going to leave them both corners, it's still going to be exempt from Meiser. Ketan like learn a brisa. A mafker is karma. If someone goes and he takes his whole vineyard, says, you know what, it's ownerless. But if a hishkama boyke, he gets up the next morning, and he harvests it, his hefker vineyard. So he's going to be chayiv, he's going to be responsible for all the matnasanim of the peret, which that's the grapes that fall single, or the weak clusters, or b'shikha, or what the bundles that he forgot, ubepay, or the corners of the field. Meaning that even though hefker is potter from peya, as the Mishnah teaches in Masechtas peya, that whatever is a food item and is protected is chayiv and meiser and peya, but if it's not, it's going to be exempt. And here it's not nishmar because the guy made a hefker. Even so, such a hefker would be chayiv in all these matnas anim, as the Gemara explains later on the Tzadi Dalman up, because it says the word tazav, you have to leave it an extra time to tell you that, yeah, you're going to have to leave this as peya also, even though you were mafker. But there's one exception. We'll put them in the meiser. If you made it hefker, even though the next morning you go and harvest it, you don't have to give meiser to the Levium. Why? Because there it doesn't say extra word tazav to leave it. So we see that even a very inferior hefker would make it pater from meiser, as the Mishnah teaches in Masech, elsewhere, that whatever is a food item and is protected is chayiv and meiser. So here, where it's not nishmar, you're going to be pater from meiser. That's all we mean to say when we say zev zepeya. We don't mean to say you have to leave it for the poor. Of course not. You take a stick and you stop them, because you could be avadin zanav shei when there's makom seder. We just say it's considered peya, that it's not going to be obligated in, even though you're going to take it for yourself, you don't have to give it to Levium meiser from that, from those fruits. Then I'll look at the next Mishnah, continuing the theme of the first Mishnah, which we say Manich as a kad, talking about jugs in the street and about the damage that it causes. Says the Mishnah in the following case: Nishbur kad b'shus rab. Let's say someone's jug broke in a public area. Stam, he was taking out his bags, and then they don't give bags anymore in the stores, and whatever it is, and one jug falls on the street. Okay. Now somebody slips on the water. That's one case. Or there's shards on the floor, these glass shards. These flip-flops people walk around with, they're not well protected of their feet. And the guy gets this big shterk in his feet, and he's got to go to podiatrist next 7 weeks to go heal from that. So, chayiv, the guy whose jug broke, he's responsible, he's liable for those damages. Yehudaim says the following words: if the guy did this intentionally, then he's going to be chayiv. But if he's not intentional, pot is going to be exempt. We'll see in the Gemara exactly what does that mean and what's his machlekes with the Tanna Kama. The first, the Gemara qualifies the halacha. I'm going to read the Mirav. We didn't learn that the owner of the jug is going to be responsible. Elisha tintfu kelav, only if the vessels, let's say the garments of the victim, got ruined b'mayim in the water. So like Rashi explains, Rav explains the Mishnah that the owner of the jug wasn't mafker his water. So it comes out that this guy's jacket, let's say, got ruined with the money of this guy, because he didn't make his water ownerless. It's like shiur. Your money is causing damage to someone else's stuff. So this guy had like a little stroller or whatever it is, got ruined in the water. That's where we say you can be chayiv. But as getintam and beis, but if let's say the guy himself gets damaged from the water, so pater, then the owner of the jug is going to be exempt. Why? Because karka oilam, it's the ground of the world that has no owner, is hizikasai, is what damaged this guy. This guy slipped on the water and he hit his head on the ground. So, as Rashi explains, comes out that this guy's money, which is his water, because it wasn't mafgrid, did just a grama ba'alma, an indirect cause of damage, because it's not the water that damaged the guy. The guy slipped on the water and he hurt his back now. He's got to go to chiropractor now for the next 3 months to try to get out that kink. Now, Rav goes according to his reasoning. This is the way Rashi explains it. That the Gemara says later on of Nunam Beis that the bar that the Torah makes you liable for is lahavloi, is only for the ear but not for the bank, because that's not your ground. And as Trace explains, you don't have to say that if, let's say, you can't say that the guy got himself injured in the water itself, because the wording sounds like that he slipped on the water, but not that he got injured by the water. And you can't say that we were talking about that the guy was mafker his water. If that would be the case, then Rob, you wouldn't be able to make the guy owner of the jug responsible not for the guy and not for the kalim, because that would be bar, and bar is putter on kalim and on adam. So this that the Mishnah is saying, says Rav, that the guy's jug who broke and someone slipped on the water, that you're going to be chayiv. What does it mean the guy slipped on the water? That's what Tis says. It doesn't sound like the water injured you. It sounds like you slipped on the water and you got hurt yourself on the ground. So that you would actually be putter for, because that's your mummin that was goyrim, but it's not your ground. But his clothing, they got ruined when he slipped. He was wearing his nice Versace, whatever, and he slips now in the water and it's all drenched. It got ruined, those beautiful shoes. That's what you can be chayiv for, because of the mayim that was metanif the kalim, which is your shiur. Okay, it's a little bit complex, but Kamrita Kamei de Shmuel says Rabbi Huda, who said this over the name of Rabbi. So when I said over the name of Shmuel, Amali said to me, no, let's see. A person's stone or his knife or his package, which is a takala, something that's a stumbling block. As we learned on the Vav Manav in the first paragraph, we learned it out from Allah Chababar, which is a takala. We always have hazard signs around pits, around manholes, right? Because it's a takala, something you could trip on. And therefore, by all of them, I recite the halacha of bar. By bar, what's the halacha? The Torah says, if it falls into your pit, a shiur or chamor. Why are you picking that? Shiur, it tells you v'lo adam, not a person. Chamor, donkey, tells you v'lo kelim, not vessels. So you see, not like Rav, this water that's a bar, not only you putter, like Rav said, if the person slips on it, but even his jacket will also be putter for, because that's kalim. Oh, but, so what's the Mishnah talking about? When the Mishnah says if someone slips, you're chayiv, so what do you mean? Yeah, but when did we say that if a person dies, then you're going to be exempt? Because the pasuk is talking about death, because it says the dead animal in the pit will be his, etc. And we say, oh, that only applies to a shiur, but not to a person. But if a person gets injured in your bar, then the damages of a person chayiv, the owner of the pit will be liable, because the pasuk is only excluding from kaifer when the guy dies. But for damages, will be chayiv. But for kalim, even for just the damages of a vessel, Turin, the owner of the bar, is going to be potter, because, as Rashi quotes the words of the Gemara later on, Daf Nadalad, Shvirasin zuhi misasin. The breaking of a vessel is its death, because it ceases to function like a being. What? Right. But that's like Tchias HaMesim, maybe, whatever. Al Kapanim, that the Mishnah also, he says, this water is his pit, so therefore, when the Mishnah is telling us you're going to be chayiv, is really the exact opposite of Rav. Is actually only on the damages, not the death, the damages of that guy's body, and not on the kalim. Rav said that liability is only on kalim, not on the man. Shmuel is saying, no, it's on the man, but the damages of the man, because again, he's learning that it's bar, and not on the kalim. And Rav learns it's shiur, and therefore you're chayiv only for the kalim, and not the person. But Al Kapanim, the Rav says the Gemara, he says, no, Shmuel, how could you say this? Immediately, when did we say this halacha? That the halacha about takala, like the guy's water that's sitting here in the street. We learn that from bar. That's hechadaf kirinu. That's when you make it ownerless like bar, because Rav holds that the bar that the Torah makes you responsible for is when you're mafkir, your reshus, and your bar. It's not you were mafkir, you made it ownerless. That's when you chayav a bar. But if you didn't make it ownerless, mamainahu, it's your money. Where do you learn that out from? You learn that from shiur. So therefore, when the guy's clothing gets ruined, it's his money that caused the damage, and he's going to be chayiv. But the damages of the person's body, that his water didn't do, that the ground did, and that's not his ground. Shmuel, on the other hand, holds that no, the halacha of bar is when you mafkir your reshus and you would not mafkir your bar. That the pasuk is also referring to. And still, even though you're holding on to the monetary rights of the bar, still the pasuk is telling you you're pater for Caleb. So our Mishnah, even though the guy was not mafkarid, it is his bar. And this that we're saying in the Mishnah you can be chayiv is when the guy's body gets damaged and not his vessels. And even though karka oilam, like Rav is saying, it's the ground that's doing it, you can be chayiv because Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. The Gemara says later on the Nun Beis that the bar that the Torah says you're liable for is not only for the airspace, it's kol shekin for the chavate, for the klap that you get. Even though it's the ground that's doing it, it's not your ground, but you one who made that, and then you can be chayiv for that. That's what is Rav and Shmuel on the halach of our Mishnah. Now, Moshe Rav Yoshe asked on Rav and Shmuel from the following brisa. The pasuk says in Shemais, "V'nafal shama sharach hamor," that if you made a pit and an ox or a donkey falls in, you're going to be chayiv. Now, that teaches us sharvely adam, an ox, but not a person. Chamor, a donkey, but Caleb, but not for the guy's vessels. From here they say the nafal teiches sharv Caleb. Let's say an ox and his vessels fall in, v'nishtabru, and they break, or chamor v'Caleb, a donkey and its vessels fall in, v'niskaru, and they tear, which Rashi just points out. The vessels of a shur, the word shvira is appropriate. It breaks because it's like a yoke and those types of things, and ladders. And ripping is more applicable by a donkey because that's the saddle cloth of the donkey. But be that as it may, chayv al behema, you'll be liable for the animal because the pasuk says shar chamar, but a pata al you'll be exempt for the vessels because it's chamar v'lekelim. So halmaza daima, what could you compare this to? The guy's stone or his knife or his package that he put in the street veziku and they damage, which Gemara doesn't let you finish off this sentence because adrab, to the contrary. How are you making what's written in the Torah dependent on what's not written in the Torah? The word should have been and what's comparable to this. So the Gemara says, you're right. No, the word should be what's comparable to the biblical case is if you had your rock, your knife, your package that you put into the street, vizik, and it caused damage, that if vessels get damage in it, or a person trips in it and dies, you can be putter like a bar, because a bar is putter on kalim and on the other. The fikr therefore continues the brayso. Imitiach tzluchisei be'even. If his jug, if his flask breaks on the guy's stone, chayev, the owner of the stone, is going to be liable. That's what the brayso says. Now the Gemara says that this brayso is difficult on both Rav and Shmuel. Why? The Reisha that says that your stone and your knife is similar to bar, and that's what it's saying. Holamaza doima kashal Rav. That's difficult in Rav because as the Gemara, as Rashi explains, the Gemara assumes right now that the case is talking about even if you were not mafker, your object, your avnei sekin masai. So that's like Shmuel, who says that we always learn from bar. But the problem is V'Seifa that says that if, let's say, that if someone's jug breaks on this guy's stone, that the owner of the stone is going to be chayiv, well, kashal is Shmuel, that's difficult on Shmuel. Because now it sounds like you're learning it from Shar, because if the stone was a bar, you should be pater on Kalim. So the Reish is difficult on Rav, and the Seifa is difficult on Shmuel. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Well, Tamech, according to your reasoning, tikshlachi gufa. So that means it's an internal contradiction. Reisha pater. The Reisha says you pater on kalim. The Seifa chayiv. The Seifa says you chayiv. So how do you even understand the brayso itself? So the Gemara says, "Ela rather Rav matar tzlatamei." Rav will answer the brayso according to him. Shmuel matar tzlatamei. Shmuel will answer it all according to him, as the Gemara explains. Rav matar tzlatamei. Rav explains it according to his reasoning. But when do we say this? That the stone is similar to the bar, which that was difficult on Rav from the Reisha, because he learns out the Avnei Sekin Vasoi from Shar, not from bar. No, that's Kishev Kir when you make it ownerless. Oh, that's of course a bar. Avaloyev Kimmer would not make it ownerless. You're right. Chayav would be liable on the vessels because that would be like Shar, which is how Rav learns. And that's really what the end of the Bryce is saying. Lafikach, therefore, meaning what? If the guy's jug breaks on the stone, meaning when you're not mafker it, that's when chayiv, you're going to be chayiv because that's not a bar, that's a shar. Okay, that's how Rav's going to explain it. He'll explain the according to his reasoning. The hash to the amrit. Now that you're saying, as we're saying in the ratio, which is like Shmuel, that that we always, even when you're not mafker, Shmuel holds, and that's the part that sounded like him. That your rock and your knife and your package is like bar. So how do we understand the end of the brisa that says you can be chayiv on kelim? I thought it's a bar is put in the kelim. No, the end of the brisa is saying Rabbi Yehuda, the bechayiv on this kelim bar. He holds that you are liable for the damages of vessels in the pit, as we'll see later on. The Gimel Beis and Perek Shoshanagach, he does not hold this chamor v'loy kelim. Therefore, according to him, he tirch tzechus be'evan chayiv. If the guy's flask breaks in that guy's stone, he's going to be chayiv. Okay, so it's not difficult on either Rab or Shmuel. But now the Gemara, however, qualifies this teaching by Amar Rabbi Lazar. He says, Lo Shon, we didn't learn this halacha that we just quoted now, that if the flask breaks on this guy's stone, that the guy who owns the stone is going to be chayiv, is elish nitkel be'even v'nishav. Only if the guy slipped on the rock, and the rock broke be'even, and the guy's vessel broke on the stone. That would be the requirement for the guy to be chayiv on the flask. But if he slipped on the ground, and then the flask comes breaking down it comes falling down onto the rock, then potter, because the karka is what caused the fall, which is not the guy's karka, it's the public's karka. So even though it landed on the rock which broke it, the owner of the rock is going to be potter. Says, wait, come on, who's that like? That's the like Reb Nassan. That's not like Reb Nassan, who says later on the Gimel with Aleph that when you have an ox that pushes another ox into a pit, so yes, the ox that caused it, but whatever you cannot collect from that shiur, you could collect from the bar, because Maisa, you caused the damage. My ox is dead in your pit. So here we see that's not like Reb Nassan, because then here, Lamaisa, my flask broke on your rock, and you should have to pay me. So it's not like Reb Nassan. Ikadam, those that say no, a different version, which would be like Reb Nassan. Omer Balazar says, don't say benitkel be'evan nisha be'evan. The only way you're going to be chayiv is if you trip on the rock and then it breaks on the rock, then you be chayiv. But that if you slipped on the ground and then your flask broke on the rock, that the guy would be exempt. No. Even if you tripped on the ground, but ultimately your flask broke on the rock, he would be chayiv. Come on, who is that like? Reb Nassan, like Reb Nassan. Now, Rashi Tosa points out an interesting case the other way around. What happens if you trip on the rock and then it breaks on the ground? Then he says you'd be potter because it's the karka elno was mazik. Even according to Shmuel, would agree that you'd be potter. While upon them, the Gemara says further, quoting from the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he said that b'miskaven. So here it gets a little bit complex, but he says that if you did it deliberately, so then chayiv, you can be chayiv. We're going to explain it more in greater detail in the next daf, but this gets us started. That, remember, what we're talking about over here is there was a Tana Kama who spoke about a case. A guy has a jug. It breaks in the street. Someone else gets injured from this guy's broken flask, either because the water spilled out or because there's broken shards. And the Tana Kama says, you're going to be chayiv. He just says, no, it depends. B'miskaven, you're going to be chayiv. Not miskaven, you can be potter. What? So the Gemara's question, like we are also wondering, what do you mean the guy intended to say he's chayiv versus not intended? Some Rabbi says, we're talking about where the guy intended to take the jug down from his shoulder. So what does that mean? So Rashi explains. He's trying to take the jug down from his shoulder, and he trips, and he bangs into a wall. Now, when someone else gets injured from this broken flask, this guy's going to be chayiv. Why? So this is a very important principle. Because nitkal, a guy who trips, is a pesha, you're negligent. You shouldn't have tripped. You're tripping and now breaking the flask, and now someone getting injured is your negligence. So when we're saying b'miskav and yichayiv, Rabbi is telling us if you intended to take the jug down from your shoulder, and as you did that, you tripped and then you knocked into the wall and broke, that is where you're going to be chayiv. So Abai says, wait a second. The inference is the Mechayiv Remeya. That means to say that Remeya, who is a Tana Kama, who is more stringent because he doesn't differentiate between Miskaven and Miskaven, that he would hold you to be Chayiv Afil Nifshira, even if, let's say, the jug just slipped off his shoulder, which is like an Einus, because you're telling me that the more lenient interpretation, no, only be Miskaven. What's Miskaven? Trying to take it off your shoulder. So, and you tripped. As you're trying to take it off, you tripped. And only then you chayiv. And what? And Rameya said you chayiv even if it slips off your shoulder? Says the Gemara, yes. Says Rabbi, yes. Chayiv Rameya hold you liable. even if the handle is in your hand, even if it's just like very cheap jug that you're holding in the bottom, whoop, slipped out, didn't even slip out of his hand. It just like dissolved, and that he's still holding onto the handle, and then it shatters. And he's like, "What junk I just bought over here in this store." Right? He's holding on the handle, and then it's like a cartoon, almost like it falls down. Even then, he'd be chayiv. Why? Says the Gemara, "Amai anasu." It's a nightness. We know famous halacha throughout the Torah. Something beyond the person's control, the Torah exempts him. It's like says the pasuk in Devarim. It says over there, that to the girl you shouldn't do anything. She didn't do anything wrong. That this man was raping her. It's not her fault. It's an einus. So Taisus very importantly actually points out in Masechta einus. We had said in Daf Chav Mabeis from Petza Tachas Patza that other mud la'olam. Taisus says over there I explained that does not include a einus gomer. A regular einus, yeah, but einus gomer lamash beyond totally like nothing I could have done. Then you're going to be potter. So why would you be chayiv? If you're going to say, wait, when do we say this pasuk of Alanar L'Sasa double is in the Ketala? Those are going to getting the death penalty. That's a rayas. That's a chiyav misa. Then we say that the girl who is forced is not going to be killed, even though there's a ma'isa erev over here. In the zaken chayiv, but maybe we would say regarding damages you would be liable, even though it's a einus gomer. It's not true because Batan learned the brayso. Nishber kad de silkai. Let's say someone has a jug that broke and he didn't pick it up from the floor. Or nafal gamloi v'loy midor. Let's say his camel fell down and he didn't pick up his camel, and someone now gets injured from this jug that he didn't pick up, or from this camel that he didn't pick up. Remei says you're responsible for now damages that it causes. They say, as you continue no, as we're going to explain later on, you're exempt from court punishment, but you'll be responsible for your judgment in heaven because you didn't take them away and it did cause damage. Now, the Chachamim agree to a mayor that to hold the person liable, when a person's stone or his knife or his package, you put it on the top of his roof. A wind that you should have realized would blow this off. Now it fell into this guy's car and it caused damage. There's going to be chayiv. And some Rashis have here on the side of the Gemara that because that's considered peshia, it's a negligence. In contrast, when you didn't pick up your camel and someone trips on the camel, that's not considered as a peshia. So, although the Chum hold that not picking up your camel, you're not chayiv, but for putting this big heavy package on top of your roof and the guy's car is right there and it's going to fall, then you're going to be chayiv. Now, this is the main thing we want. Umay did a mail at Rabbanan. This is where we're going to end. The Rabbanan agreed to Rabbanan that you would be potter, but Malakan kantan alagag amanas al nagvan. If let's say you put jugs on top of your roof to dry them up. And it falls with an uncommon wind and the damages. Shuhu potter. Why? Because it's an einus. So obviously you see that when there's an einus gama by Nezakin, you're going to be potter, which is not like Rabbah, because he wanted to explain Remeir in the Mishnah that Meir would say you were holding the handle, you'd be chayiv because he's explaining Rabbi Yehuda that the guy trips. Okay, then you're chayiv. But and Remeir that's more machmer. Even if it just slips out, but that's einus gomer. And you see clear, Meir does not hold about einus gomer. The Gemara is going to say a different interpretation from Abaya on the next daf to disagree with Rabbah. Thank you for any time.